Last night, my mother said my grandfather was fighting for his life. I abandoned a keynote in Chicago, raced through Logan, and rang his bell with shaking hands, only to find him watering roses in a Boston cardigan. While my pulse hammered, I opened Instagram. My parents and my brother raised margaritas in Turks and Caicos. The caption read, "Finally free." Free from what? From responsibility, from truth, maybe from me. My name is Harper Lane. I am 30, the operations director at Lane Harbor Collection, and the daughter who was always told to wait her turn. I have waited through double shifts, red-eye flights, and polite speeches about family legacy. I have waited through promotions that stopped 1 inch from my name because keeping peace was more important than keeping score. Grandpa Samuel opens the door wider. His silver eyebrows lift as if I have arrived from another planet. He is steady, warm coffee in his hand, cardigan neat, color in his cheeks. No ambulance, no medical alarm, only his garden gloves on the console table. My breath evens out, and then the anger arrives like heat through glass. "They said you were sick," I tell him. He steps back and studies my face the way builders study a load-bearing wall. "They have been saying many things," he says. "Come inside." The foyer still smells like lemon oil and sea air. Photos line the staircase. In every frame, my brother Cole stands at the center while I hover slightly out of focus. We cross the hall to his study. Sunlight spreads across the mahogany like a calm sea. Grandpa closes the door and turns to the far wall panel. "I have been patient," he says, "but patience without leverage is surrender." He slides the panel aside and reveals a small safe. Not the old one I knew, a new unit with a tiny camera lens tucked under the lip. "I installed it last spring," he says. A man learns to protect his work. He spins the dial and opens the door. Inside sits a leather journal, a neat stack of envelopes, and a slim drive labeled Garden. He seats me at the desk and taps the keyboard. The screen comes alive. The first clip shows my mother Vivian in a silk blouse. My father Mark hovers at her shoulder. They lift documents from the safe. They take photos. They whisper dates. They do not look nervous. They look practiced. Another clip shows Cole attempting a joke while feeding papers into a portable scanner. The timestamp lands on the same week I was in Portland for an audit I did not need to attend. My mouth goes dry. "This is why I called you today," Grandpa says. "Not to frighten you, but to stop pretending you will be treated fairly if you wait." He places a folder in front of me. For a second, my hands do not belong to me. I open the folder and see copies of trust withdrawals, internal memos that do not match the minutes, a list of properties shuffled through shell buyers, and a note that says, "Check digital signatures." My chest tightens. I hear my own voice from last night, apologizing to a ballroom parade, missing a keynote. I hear my mother laughing over surf and ice. I steady my breath and keep turning pages. At the bottom sits a tab marked Court. The paper inside is crisp and legal and cold. It is a petition to have Samuel Lane declared mentally incompetent. Next to the signature line is an electronic certificate. The name attached to the e-signature reads Harper Lane. For a heartbeat, the room tilts, then it steadies. I look up at my grandfather and feel the old need to ask permission die in my throat. Someone used my identity to try to erase his. The truth is no longer a private matter. It is a path with a cost. I press my thumb to the desk edge to ground myself and slide the petition back into the light, ready to read every line until something breaks. Outside, a siren fades. Inside, my phone buzzes once on the wood. A new message blinks across the screen. "If you love your family, drop this. We know where your secrets live." My hand hovers. I do not answer. I lift my eyes to the man who built everything we have, and I say the only sentence that feels true now. "Show me everything." If you are watching this, drop a comment telling me where you are from. Hit subscribe and stay tuned to hear how I finally stood up for myself after years of being the forgotten mother. Tessa Morgan arrives with a legal pad, a laptop, and the kind of focus that turns noise into evidence. We clear my grandfather's desk and start a fresh chain for everything we touch. She scans the drive, flips through the folders, and asks me to log into the trust portal. I type with steady hands. She watches the ledger populate line by line. There it is, she says. Not surprise. Confirmation. Withdrawals layered in quiet increments until the total reads like a dare. 3.6 million gone. Not to vendors, not to capital improvements. The routing trails into charity shells and lands in Jersey. She traces the path with her pen, taps twice, and takes a screenshot for the record. Next, she pulls the electronic petition that used my name. We run the certificate through her tool and check the device signature against the company's asset list. The log points back to a workstation registered to headquarters. No travel, no off-site badge, a clean hit inside our walls. She looks up at me, and I see the answer before she speaks. Someone handled a company device to push an e-sign I never made. We stay in the study because it is neutral ground. He built his work here. I am not giving that memory back to the people who tried to erase him. Tessa drafts a TRO to freeze movement on the trust and the linked accounts. She reads it aloud so I can hear my own name tied to action instead of apology. I sign, she files. We wait through the brief silence between submission and confirmation. When the ping comes, it sounds like a window opening. Ruth knocks. She steps in with a small envelope clutched like a relic. I kept this because it felt wrong, she says. Inside is a USB. Tessa plugs it in and hits play. My mother's voice fills the room, smooth and cool. You will balance the numbers, she tells the accountant. The tone makes the word balance sound like erase. The accountant stammers about timelines and audits. My mother repeats herself, slower now, as if speaking to a child. Make it a line. There is also a second voice in the background, lower, saying it is already taken care of. I listen to the end, and my jaw aches from how hard I am holding it shut. Tessa copies the file into the evidence folder and writes the time, the place, the chain, the source. She thanks Ruth, and Ruth nods with a kind of tired relief that makes me want to promise her better days, and mean it. She leaves as quietly as she came. We step onto the porch for air. The roses are still open, like nothing inside has shifted. Tessa tells me to expect noise now. When you cut off flow, people move. We will not chase them, she says. We will hold our ground and let their choices bring them to us. I nod. Holding ground is new for me, but it feels more honest than running toward approval that was never real. Back in the study, I open my email to forward the filings to the board chair. A new message sits at the top of the inbox with no subject line. The sender is a throwaway that looks like it was made in a hurry. The body is only 2 sentences. If you touch the family, we will release your private photos. Walk away while you can. For a second, I do not breathe. Then I do. Tessa reads it over my shoulder. She does not flinch. She tells me to screenshot it, to save the header, to do nothing else with it. I follow her voice the way you follow a lighthouse through fog. I close the laptop. I place my hands flat on the desk until the anger settles into something colder and more useful. Outside, a car passes and the sound fades into the hum of the city. I look at the door to the hall, where the safe is hidden, and decide I am done being moved by threats. The reply they want will not come. The next move will be mine. I do not call the police. Not yet. I sit with Tessa and choose a path that will be judged, and we document every inch of it. She drafts a notarized memo that states the purpose, the scope, the witnesses, the limits. Chain of custody forms stack beside a clean laptop. Her paralegal sets up a new account in my name under counsel control. I sign nothing. I touch nothing. I watch. An independent forensics vendor arrives with a kit that looks like a surgeon's tray. They image my phone and my laptop. They pull hashes and label drives. They lift logs that show my electronic signature was spoofed through a workstation at headquarters that I have never used. The IP fingerprint lands inside our Boston office. The device tag belongs to IT. The timestamp matches the morning my flight left O'Hare. My name was pressed onto papers while I was strapped into a seat over Lake Michigan. The honeypot account goes live in a way only insiders would notice. A tiny balance appears inside an internal ledger reachable by people who already know where to look. The vendor mirrors every packet. Tessa's paralegal records each keystroke with a screen camera running a clock in the corner. The goal is simple. A test transfer so small it cannot harm anyone, but loud enough to call to whoever has been moving money. By late afternoon, a request pings our system. It references a donor fund with a noble title and no history. The comment line reads, "Cover the gap under consulting." The amount is modest, a number picked to blend. Tessa nods once. We approve the dummy transfer under counsel signature, and the vendor traces the path like a hunter, following snow prints. The packet slips out through a bank I do not recognize, then into a charity with a mission statement about youth enrichment, and a board page that never loads. Another hop. A subaccount appears labeled Outreach. A single recurring payee sits beneath it. Name: Janine Calder. The room tilts a degree. Miss Calder taught Cole economics in high school. She wrote his recommendation and called him gifted, while I stacked chairs after a fundraiser. Tessa opens filings. The charity is new. It lists a mailbox that rents by the hour. It reports expenses that read like guesses. The outreach payee receives $175,000 every quarter for advisory services. There is no advisory note attached. There is only a quiet tunnel where money disappears. Ruth calls when I text the name. She speaks softly, as if the walls have ears. Miss Calder came to the house twice last year. Short visits, closed doors. Once she left with a box that smelled like printer ink. I write the dates on Tessa's pad and feel heat crawl up my neck. The forensics vendor finishes their first report. The signature certificate that carried my name shows a header mismatch. The cryptographic trace points to a cloned profile on a domain machine. The machine belongs to IT. The last admin session used a badge assigned to a contractor hired 6 months ago. The initials match a person I have tried not to think about for a long time. Tessa looks at me. "We will get the full workbook," she says. We will not say that name until the report lands. I nod. My phone buzzes. The countdown email drops by 1 more hour, and the subject line adds a single word: decide. Outside Tessa's window, the harbor light fades into a thin gray. Inside, the printer spits out the images of the outreach tree, the donor fund, the mailbox address, the payment schedule, the advisory line that explains nothing. Tessa pins the pages to a corkboard she keeps for hard days. My mother's voice from the USB runs through my head like a metronome. Reclassify, move the shortfall, keep it tidy. We break at dusk. I step into the elevator with the forensics vendor's chain of custody receipt folded in my pocket. The doors open to the lobby. A man in a navy jacket waits beside the security desk, a stiff envelope in his hand, and my name on his clipboard. "Are you Harper Lane, ma'am?" "I am." He hands me the envelope and reads from a card. "You are hereby served." The caption at the top of the complaint is crisp and bold. The allegation is one line that steals my air. Embezzlement, By me. The conference floor smells like polish and nerves. An emergency notice glows beyond the glass doors. My parents linger by the coffee urn. Cole tugs a borrowed tie. Directors murmur about stability as if the word were a script. Chairman Wilcox taps his pen and calls us to order. My father races an agenda like a man running yellow lights. My mother speaks about continuity, then yields the floor to Cole. He thanks the board and reads a note about modernization. The cadence is smooth. The eyes are not. Tessa sits at my left with tabs the color of traffic lights. Before this meeting, she sent litigation holds to every department, every shared drive, every vendor. The holds stop shredders and freeze delete keys. If anyone tries anyway, the attempt will sing on a server log. My turn. I click the first slide. Lines of money move like tide channels. I narrate dates and amounts, not names. A donor fund that never donated. A mailbox rented by the hour. A charity with a board page that will not load. A payee who collects advisory fees for advising no one. I do not say the name under the outreach line. I let the pattern speak. My father interrupts. He calls it a misunderstanding in the complexity of hospitality accounting. He smiles at the directors he golfs with and says envy like a stain. I advance one slide. Numbers do not care about golf. A director asks for source documents. Tessa sets binders at each seat. Ledgers, bank records, network logs, a legal hold notice on each cover. My phone buzzes. I do not check it. I explain that an independent lab traced signatures bearing my name to a workstation I have never touched. The certificate header does not match my devices. Across the table, Director Harlan leans back with folded arms. He once told me to smile more at the holiday gala. He looks bored until Tessa slides a thin envelope to me. Inside are screenshots and a calendar invite from an anonymous account. Metadata shows edits to board minutes after the fact. The timestamps land on weekends. The track changes field holds a username I know by heart. Harlan. I look up. He does not look away. My phone lights again. A secure message appears from a new handle. He forced me to bury dates last spring. A second file drops in, the original minutes and the edited versions. The sender signs with a single letter, H. I say the line I came to say. When your last name buys silence, do you keep the peace or keep your soul? The room waits. My mother smiles for loyalty. My father proposes a vote to confirm Cole as chief executive for stability during this moment of confusion. Wilcox asks if there is other information before a vote. I slide one more page to the center. Not a name, but the shape of the hole a name leaves. An approval path that loops. A consulting line that blooms each quarter. A cash box that empties and fills with no hands attached. I keep the last piece in my pocket. The chair calls a 5-minute recess. Directors knot in corners and pretend. Their phones are not buzzing. Tessa writes 2 words. Hold firm. I face the window. The harbor looks calm enough to lie. My phone vibrates again. It is Ruth. Her text is short. Mr. Samuel is gone. The car is still in the garage. Ruth's text hits like a fire alarm. I leave the boardroom during recess and take the stairs 2 at a time. Boston air slaps my face when the doors open. Ruth waits at the curb with her keys and a map on her phone. A small dot blinks near the harbor. Not the club, the old boathouse. We park crooked and run down a warped ramp. Tidewater chops against pylons. A single bulb burns behind frosted glass. I push the door. Cedar and diesel. Rope coils stacked like sleeping snakes. My grandfather sits on a bench with a thermos and the leather portfolio I know by heart. I thought you might come here first, he says. His voice is steady. Mine is not. You scared me, I say. He nods, as if fear is a tax he accepts. I needed a place with no audience. He lays out documents in a careful row. The seals press crisp rings into the paper. The heading reads, Conditional Transfer of Controlling Interest. The trustee is named. The effective clause is simple. If evidence of fraud appears, control passes to me. The packet is dated last month. The envelope behind it reads, Escrow. I feel my chest unlock. Do you accept? He asks. You give notice. You lead. Yes. He takes out a phone I have never seen and calls the trustee. Tessa steps through the door as if the sea carried her to us. She scans the pages. She photographs the seals. She logs the time and the location. She speaks with the trustee and names each exhibit. The language is plain. The meaning is not. The transfer activates upon receipt of the condition packet. A confirmation email lands on her screen. She nods once. It is done. Grandpa pours coffee into the thermos lid and slides it to me. They forgot who I am, he says. They forgot who you are. He rests his palm on the portfolio like a benediction. Wind rattles the glass. The light flickers and steadies. Tessa's phone pings. An email from the forensics vendor sits at the top. She opens it and her face tightens. The subject line is an invoice from 6 months ago. Installation and maintenance of keylogger on Lane laptop. Shipped to headquarters. Requester department is IT. The device ID matches the signature trace that carried my name onto papers I never signed. There are attachments. A purchase order. Badge logs. An admin session note with 3 initials. The vendor links the session to a temporary profile, created the week after I started seeing someone I thought I could trust. My stomach drops as if the floor has moved. Ruth steps closer. Her jaw sets like a doorframe. Tessa prints the invoice on a portable unit she keeps in her bag. The page slides warm into my hand. The requester field holds those 3 initials again. The letters look ordinary and cruel. Outside the door, a gull screams. Inside, the harbor clock ticks. I hear my mother's voice from the USB in my head. Reclassify. Move the shortfall. Keep it tidy. I look at my grandfather and think of the safe camera he installed when no one was watching. I think of the boardroom that smells like lemon polish and denial. Tessa lays the chain of custody receipt on the bench and taps the requester line. We will have names on record within the hour, she says. But you already know. I do. Saying it once will keep me from flinching later. I straighten in my shoulders. I read the name out loud. Evan Pike. The hearing starts at 9. The placard reads, Special Session. 2 federal observers take seats with a letter that says they are here to observe. Tessa rolls in 2 cases, states chain of custody for every exhibit, and nods for me to sit. Exhibit A. Our honeypot trace. 1 small transfer leaves our system, slips through a bank we do not use, lands in a charity that files from a rented mailbox, then drops into an outreach sub-account, paying Janine Calder on a schedule that mirrors our consulting gaps. Exhibit B. The electronic signature analysis. My name wrote a cloned profile on a domain machine in our Boston office. The header does not match my devices. The session timestamp matches a morning I was in the air. I never touched that keyboard. Exhibit C. The keylogger paper trail. Purchase order, invoice, badge logs, admin session notes, shipped to headquarters. Requester, IT. The device ID matches the signature spoof. 3 initials sit on the work note. I do not say them. The room hears them anyway. Exhibit D. The safe camera video. My mother hands the accountant a thick envelope. His eyes flick to the door. Her voice is low and even. Keep it smooth by quarter close. My father off screen. Keep it tidy. No one speaks. The chairman clears his throat. Tessa adds a short header report. The threatening emails that told me to stop came from a workstation assigned to Cole. The route passes through a VPN that fools no one with a forensics kit. We recess. Through the glass, I watch process servers hand envelopes to my parents. They refuse to read, and still sign. Tessa squeezes my shoulder. Hold the line. Push the vote after break. I nod, but my phone buzzes. North stares. Now. Cole waits on the landing with his hands jammed into his pockets. He talks to the wall. Mom set up the messages. She told me to send them from my station so it would look like a prank if traced. She said nobody would dig. He swallows. I can give you admin passwords, the notebook with code names, and the payment chain for Calder. But I need a way out. I stare at him. Not ruin, he says. Not prison. A way out. The bell rings. I picture the board table. I picture my grandfather's safe. I picture the workers who will live with whatever choice I make. Cole looks up for the first time. Eyes rimmed red, like a kid who stayed in the pool too long. I remember him at 8. Not this man, with a VPN and a script. I take the notebook he slides from his jacket. It is worn. It smells like toner. He lets go fast, as if it burns. Back in the room, the observers uncap their pens. The chairman lifts the gavel. Tessa looks at me for a signal. On the table sit Exhibits A through D and a future with 2 doors. I stand between them, one hand on the notebook, one on the back of my chair, and decide which door to open first. We file back into the boardroom, 2 minutes past the hour. The air tastes like paper and coffee. Chairman Wilcox lays a stamped letter on the table and dials the trustee. A steady voice confirms receipt of the condition packet executed last month. Control of the voting trust now vests in me. A motion to remove Mark, Vivian, and Cole from all roles goes to roll call. The secretary reads names in order. Ayes stack until the list stops being numbers and becomes a direction. No one says no. Security collects 3 badges at the door. The lanyards slide free with a small final sound. I stand and speak without notes. Effective immediately, we retain an independent audit to review every account and entity. Effective immediately, we add profit sharing for employees with 1 year of service. Effective immediately, we enforce an ethics code restored from the clause my grandfather wrote 47 years ago. We will post it in the lobby and in every break room. It will not be a poster. It will be a rule. The chair asks about referrals. Tessa sets down 2 stacks. One goes to the proper office and covers the keylogger, the mailbox charity, the outreach sub-account, and the payments to Janine Calder. The second notifies the insurer and the exchange. She looks to me for the last decision. The room draws tight. I could ask for handcuffs. I could give the cameras a picture that burns. I look at payroll, in the ledger, in the people who will live with whatever I do next. I choose a different line. I do not request a criminal referral for my mother at this time. I request a civil agreement. She repays double the documented loss. She resigns every board seat. She accepts a 10-year ban from management. She agrees to an independent monitor. She signs a confession of judgment that triggers if she misses a single term. She signs a waiver that releases the company from claims tied to her removal. Into the settlement she now accepts. Some faces harden, some soften. Tessa reads the terms into the record and notes that outside authorities remained free to act on independent evidence. My father scoffs. Cole studies his hands. My grandfather sits straighter than I have seen in months. His eyes shine and do not break. We step to the atrium so staff can hear at once. I speak from the balcony. Profit sharing starts this quarter. A living wage review starts today. An ethics hotline goes live at 5. No favoritism, no secret ledgers. If you raise a concern, you will not be punished. If you retaliate, you will not stay. Maintenance rolls a cart to the wall. 2 portraits come down in linen. A photograph goes up in their place. My grandfather at a ribbon cutting. A girl with a gap tooth at his side. Me. The atrium holds a long breath that feels like a reset. Phones buzz. The headline lands before the echoes fade. Harper spared her mother for power. The words are sharp and clean. An activist fund amplifies it and calls my decision weak. A commentator says, "Dynasty shuffle," and smiles into a camera. A junior manager whispers that her rent just got easier and wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. Tessa screen lights with an email from a major shareholder. The subject is one word: hearing. The body demands a public session within 72 hours to explain the settlement and the ethics plan. It lists questions and cites investor rights. It copies reporters and lawyers. I read the last sentence twice. Come ready to defend your choice. The room tilts a degree. I look at the new photograph on the wall and the people below it. I feel the ship shift again under my feet. The hearing clock has started. The lights will be bright. I will walk in anyway. The hearing room is brighter than any ballroom. Rows of chairs, microphones that make small sounds feel large. The shareholder who called this session sits in the front row with a yellow pad and a pen that never stops moving. Cameras blink. Wilcox opens with procedure. Then it is my turn to explain why I chose a civil hammer over a criminal spectacle. I speak into the quiet. We installed profit sharing because people build value before numbers do. We ordered an independent audit because sunlight is the only cure that scales. We restored the ethics clause my grandfather wrote 47 years ago because rules mean nothing until they are printed where everyone can see them. We sought restitution from Vivian because restitution pays workers to first. Outside, authorities remain free to act. Mercy does not erase consequence. Hands rise. Why double repayment rather than immediate prosecution? Because the company was bleeding cash and time. Because a confession of judgment turns a promise into an asset the court can enforce. Because public pain would feed cameras while employees waited for rent. A second question lands sharper. Did you protect your mother to protect your throne? I keep my voice even. I protected the balance sheet and the people under it. I protected the option to prosecute if any term is breached. Leadership is restraint when restraint buys justice. Tessa reads the settlement on the record. Double repayment, 10-year ban, independent monitor, waiver against claims. Any breach triggers the confession and unlocks referral. My father stiffens in his seat. My mother signs with a hand that trembles once. Cole keeps his eyes down and turns in passwords that map the rest of the tunnel. Later, the proper office will send its own letters. I will not control them. I should not. The hearing ends without drama. Headlines still bite. They say I spared my mother for power. They do not print the clause, now taped to every time clock. They do not print the names of housekeepers who joined profit sharing this quarter, or the cooks who stopped counting coins at midnight. I do not chase them. I go back to work. 12 months pass like surf. We close the audit. We unwind shell entities. Profits rise 19%. The Lane Harbor Scholarship Fund awards 41 grants to employees' children. In the atrium, the photograph of my grandfather gathers fingerprints over glass because people touch it as they pass. He comes to the office twice a week and sits by the window that faces the harbor. He says the water looks honest again. One evening, a letter waits on my desk. Cole writes from a small place he rents near the ferry terminal. He runs a kitchen that hires people who need a second beginning. Former inmates, survivors, men and women who know how a door can close fast. He writes that he learned from watching me build rules that lift rather than crush. He asks if someday we could sit without lawyers. I place the letter beside a picture of us as kids. I do not answer that night. At an industry gala, someone says, "I look like hotelier of the year." I tell them our housekeeping schedules look better than our mirrors. Later, I stand at the railing and watch staff dance to a song I do not know. Ruth squeezes my hand. Tessa laughs for the first time in months. My grandfather raises a glass of mineral water. The room feels like a second chance. If you have ever had to choose between punishment and repair, ask yourself which one makes tomorrow kinder for people who did not break anything. Justice is not a flame to wave. It is heat you stand near so others can warm their hands. The lesson I carry is simple. Love outlasts rage when you feed it. Forgiveness is not forgetting. It is refusing to sleep beside hatred. We lay the weight down and we walk forward together.